STS-71 was the third mission of the U.S.-Russian Shuttle-Mir program and the first space shuttle docking to Russian space station Mir. It started on the 27th of June 1995 with the launch of Space Shuttle Atlantis from Launchpad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The shuttle delivered a relief crew of 2 cosmonauts, Anatoly, Solovyev and Nikolai, Budarin, to the station, and recovered Increment astronaut Norman Thagard.Atlantis returned to Earth on the 7th of July with a crew of 8. It was the first of 7 straight missions to Mir flown by Atlantis. For the 5 days the shuttle was docked to Mir, they were the largest spacecraft in orbit at the time. STS-71 marked the first docking of a space shuttle to a space station, the first time a shuttle crew switched members with the crew of a station, and the 100th manned space launch by the United States. The mission carried Spacelab and included a logistical resupply of Mir. Together the shuttle and station crews conducted various on-orbit joint U.S.-Russian life science investigations with Spacelab along with the shuttle. Amateur radio experiment to experiment. Crew. Mission highlights. The primary objectives of this flight were to rendezvous and perform the first docking between the Space Shuttle and the Russian space station Mir. On the 29th of June, in the first U.S. Russian docking in 20 years, Atlantis delivered a relief crew of 2 cosmonauts, Anatoly, Solovyev and Nikolai, Budarin, to Mir. Other prime objectives were on-orbit joint United States of America-Russian life sciences investigations aboard Spacelab Mir, logistical resupply of the Mir and recovery of U.S. astronaut Norman Thagard. Secondary objectives included filming with the IMAX camera and the shuttle amateur radio experiment to experiment. STS-71 was the 100th U.S. human space launch conducted from Cape Canaveral, the first U.S. space shuttle Russian space station docking and joint on-orbit operations, largest spacecraft ever in orbit, and the first on-orbit change-out of shuttle crew. Docking occurred at 9 a.m. EDT, the 29th of June, using R-bar or Earth radius vector approach, with Atlantis closing in on Mir from directly below. R-bar approach allows natural forces to break the orbiter's approach more than would occur along standard approach directly in front of the space station. Also, an R-bar approach minimizes the number of orbiter jet firings needed for approach. The manual phase of the docking began with Atlantis about a half-mile below Mir, with Gibson at the controls on aft flight deck. Station keeping was performed when the orbiter was about 75 meters from Mir, pending approval from Russian and U.S. flight directors to proceed. Gibson then maneuvered the orbiter to a point about 10 meters from Mir before beginning the final approach to station. Closing rate was close to the targeted 0.1 foot per second, being approximately 0.107 foot per second at contact. Interface contact was nearly flawless, less than 25 mm lateral misalignment and an angular misalignment of less than 0.5 degrees per axis. Docking occurred about 216 nautical miles above Lake Baikal region of the Russian Federation. The orbiter docking system with androgynous peripheral docking system served as the actual connection point to a similar interface on the docking port on Mir's crystal module. ODS, located in the forward payload bay of Atlantis, performed flawlessly during the docking sequence. When linked, Atlantis and Mir formed the largest spacecraft ever in orbit, with a total mass of about 225 metric tons, orbiting some 218 nautical miles above the Earth. After hatches on each side opened, STS-71 crew passed into Mir for a welcoming ceremony. On the same day, the Mir-18 crew officially transferred responsibility for the station to the Mir-19 crew, and the two crews switched spacecraft. For the next 5 days, about 100 hours in total, joint U.S. Russian operations were conducted, including biomedical investigations and transfer of equipment to and from Mir. 15 separate biomedical and scientific investigations were conducted, using the Space Lab module installed in the aft portion of Atlantis's payload bay, and covering 7 different disciplines: cardiovascular and pulmonary functions, human metabolism, neuroscience, hygiene, sanitation and radiation, behavioral performance and biology, fundamental biology, and microgravity research. The Mir-18 crew served as test subjects for investigations. 3 Mir-18 crew members also carried out an intensive program of exercise and other measures to prepare for re-entry into gravity environment. After more than 3 months in space, numerous medical samples as well as discs and cassettes were transferred to Atlantis from Mir, including more than 100 urine and saliva samples, about 30 blood samples, 20 surface samples, 12 air samples, several water samples and numerous breath samples taken from Mir-18 crew members. Also moved was a broken SALYUT-5 computer. Transferred to Mir were more than 450 kilograms of water generated by the orbiter for waste system flushing and electrolysis, specially designed spacewalking tools for use by the Mir-19 crew during a spacewalk to repair a jammed solar array on the SPEKTR module, and transfer of oxygen and nitrogen from Shuttle's environmental control system to raise air pressure on the station, to improve Mir's consumables margin. The spacecraft undocked on the 4th of July, following a farewell ceremony, with the Mir hatch closing at 3:32 p.m. EDT. The 3rd of July and hatch on orbiter docking system shut 16 minutes later. Gibson compared separation sequence 2 at Cosmic Ballet. Prior to the Mir-Atlantis undocking, the Mir-19 crew temporarily abandoned station, flying away from it in the Soyuz spacecraft so they could record images of Atlantis and Mir separating. Soyuz unlatched at 6:55 a.m. EDT, and Gibson undocked Atlantis from Mir at 7:10 a.m. EDT. The returning crew of 8 equaled the largest crew in shuttle history. To ease the re-entry into gravity environment after more than 100 days in space, Mir-18 crew members Thagard.Zhurov and Strekalov lay supine in custom-made recumbent seats installed prior to landing in the orbiter middeck. In-flight problems included a glitch with General-Purpose Computer 4, which was declared failed when it did not synchronize with GPC-1. Subsequent troubleshooting indicated it was an isolated event, and GPC-4 operated satisfactorily for the remainder of mission. During the SAREX portion of the flight, a crew contacted several schools. One was Redlands High School in Redlands, CA. Charlie Precourt was able to contact students and technicians that built the communications package for a window of about 10 minutes.